Alrighty, so we've classified them, we've modified them, so let's break down their properties. Continental, polar, and continental Arctic I just combined into one here, right? During the winter, you're going to get cold, dry air. It's really just icky.
The term polar vortex, we certainly heard about it a lot this past winter, and you may have actually heard it might be returning very soon. Well, WSBT meteorologist Matt Rudkin is here to put an end to those rumors. Matt.
Yeah, absolutely, Rick. I've received literally dozens of phone calls, online messages about an internet rumor stating that the polar vortex and snow is coming mid-late month. Well, it's exactly that, just rumors. First off, let's take a look at a few snow statistics here locally. On record, these records go back about 115 years. The earliest it's ever snowed that we could measure was September 25th, way back in 1942. You average out all 115 years, the typical normal first snowfall is around the first, second week of November. So the fact there's rumors that we're going to see an accumulating snow event here in the next few weeks, not going to happen. Now let's turn our attention to the polar vortex. The polar vortex is nothing new. It's been around literally for millions of years. It's simply a pool of very cold air that spins around the Arctic, and sometimes chunks of that cold air can become loose from that circulation. When that happens, it affects our weather for a few periods of days, causing extremely cool temperatures. And this was back in January. The purple there, the very cold air. And look how little chunks come down here. And that's what we saw happen back in January, where we saw temperatures below zero for several days. So the fact that these rumors are going on of weather similar to that in mid-September, not going to happen. They're just that, rumors, people that are looking for attention. So don't worry, don't bring out the snow boots just yet. As a matter of fact, Abby Wepler has some pretty warm temperatures in the 7-day forecast. She'll have details in less than 10 minutes.
So the little animation there was very neat because you could see the polar vortex, you could see the Rossby waves, and then you can see how far it comes down. It didn't quite hit Florida that time, but sometimes it can. So during the summer, there's only CP, no CA. Again, you can just drop the CA if you want. Air is warmed from the ground. There's always warmed from the, I don't know why that said that there. Alright. But if it's coming from the ground, right, you know that means dry air. So it's still cold and dry. But in the summer, these CPs are welcome because that means that it breaks up some heat waves, right? Some cold air blast through. It's kind of like the equivalent of you're standing outside in the middle of summer here in Florida, and then you get this strong breeze that comes by, and it's just like, oh, that feels so nice. Or when a cloud comes, and not like a rain cloud, but when a nice cloud comes, and a cumulus cloud comes up and covers you, and you're sitting in the shadow of it, and you can feel that temperature drop. You're just like, oh, thank goodness, right? It's kind of like that, but in a larger scale. Now, there is one other thing. It brings lake effect snow. Now, you guys don't have to worry about this here in Florida. However, if you've lived anywhere else by the Great Lakes, you will have heard of and maybe even seen lake effect snow. And if you move there, just be aware of lake effect snow. Watch which side of the lake you're moving on to, okay? Because what happens here is the cold air mass, the CP, moves over warm water, usually the Great Lakes. It moves over that warm water. Well, what happens? Well, water starts to evaporate, right? And when it starts to evaporate, where does it go? Into the clouds. But once it gets onto the other side of the lake, where there's land, you don't get that warmth anymore from the water, and you get cold. And what happens? Well, you get oversaturated because you were warm, now you're cold. Cold air can't hold as much water as warm air. We learned that a long time ago now. And so what happens? It dumps it on you. Right? I'm sorry if you don't like that term, but if you've ever experienced lake effect snow, it's the proper term. Okay? Just dumps it on you in large amounts. So let's take a look at this, okay? This is where I'm from. Oop, right there. Okay? So, I experienced some lake effect snow, but not a lot, right? So if you look here, I'm kind of in the gray here, so I usually got 24 to 35 inches of snow, right? 2 to 3 feet of snow. Well, my friends who've lived over here and Boston, they're getting 36 to 59 inches of snow. I also have friends that live over here, 100 to over 130 inches of snow. Okay. And I know we here in Florida can't comprehend this. We're like, what in the world does that mean? It looks like, okay, stand up, you're buried in snow. No. But really, how can you, let me show you with pictures. Okay, let me show you with pictures. That's what it means. Okay, look at these houses. There's the door. Regular sized door. Yeah, can't see the doorknob. Too much snow. Look at this car. Actually, this happened to me in Colorado. It's kind of fun in Colorado because the snow is light and fluffy and nice, and you just do like a figure eight and the snow is gone. But anyway, you'd safely do a figure eight safely in the snow and black ice, and I know any of you who've driven in snow know what I mean. Yeah. Right. And then here, this is a wall. It is not a wall. It is snow. This is what 100 and some odd inches of snow looks like. Okay, that's a car. That looks like an SUV. And here, snow. Right? Interesting. Yes. Actually, just to go on a little bit further, I had a situation like this when I lived in Canada there, and I had to call in to work. I literally cannot get out of my door, right? That's what it looked like. And they fired me for not coming in. I was like, seriously? Thankfully, I was only 16. I'm like, I can get another job. Alright, so moving on to MP air masses. Right, MP, marine, polar. So cold and wet. So they're still a little bit warmer than the CP, but not by much. I mean, it's still P, right? And so there's two areas it develops. This one and this one. So on each coast of our continent, essentially. Now, again, winter versus summer. In the winter, it starts over here in Siberia and moves over, right? And so what happens is it moves over the ocean. Now, I know you could be like, well, then you can just add a W to it. Yeah, you could, but because it's moving over such a large mass, we call it a whole new thing. So it's MP instead of CP. Okay? And so what happens here? Well, you get lots of clouds, and, Seattle, it rains and it's cloudy all the time, right? There you go. And then in the summer, it moves over, same way, it moves over, but instead it brings lots of fog to it. So you'll hear about the fog in San Francisco covering the Golden Gate Bridge, right? And it's gorgeous when you see it. Don't want to be driving in it, but when you see it in pictures, it looks amazing. And that's what's causing it, the MP. Now, on the other side of the coast, you'd be like, well, it doesn't affect us, right? Because if you look here, we have what? We have the westerlies. So it comes this way, right? So this is going that way, this is going that way, and you can be like, ha ha, Europe, this is your problem now, right? Usually. But there's always exceptions to the rules, right? So instead of being nice and going off to Europe, what it does, and this is pretty miserable, what it does is it goes out towards Europe. It's like, okay, I'm going to go get Europe, and then it changes its mind and comes back. You're like, wait, what? No. In the wintertime, they're called Noreasters. Northeast winds. Like, because it's coming from the ocean, right? From the European side, right? From the ocean. And so it brings strong winds, freezing temperatures, high humidity. What does high humidity mean? Lots of precipitation. Cold and high humidity, that guy. Right? Now, in the summertime, when these nor'easters happen, they're still called nor'easters, but they bring really nice weather. Like, think about it, you're hot, it's hot, it's humid, you're sweating, and then all of a sudden comes this big air mass that's nice and cool. right? So what if it rains a little bit? It's nice and cool, and it cools you off, and you're like, oh, great, this is great.
Just a mention of the word nor'easter empties milk and bread from store shelves in the Northeast. Now, the strongest nor'easters bring crippling snow, damaging winds, and destructive ocean waves. But not all nor'easters are created equal. Some are just mere inconveniences. By definition, a nor'easter is a storm of the east coast of North America, so-called because the winds over the coastal area are from the Northeast. That's it, no other requirements. But how about the timing? Nor'easters may occur any time of year, but are most frequent and most violent between October and April. Now you know.
Alright, so let's talk about MTs. We always like talking about ourselves, right? So here we go. MTs. Where did they originate? Here and here. What are MTs? Marine tropical. So hot and wet. Something we're familiar with, right? So marine tropical. These guys go that way. These guys, remember how hurricanes go? Wee! Over and up, right? So these guys are going over and up. So we say they originate over top of us. Now these happen both winter and summer. In the winter time, you get it to move up, but it's also the whole year, basically, it's fighting with CP. So it's a constant CP-MT battle. And in the wintertime, the CP wins. Okay? In the summertime, the MT wins. So in the wintertime, occasionally it gets up a little bit further, but usually it stays, oh, look at that, right where we might be. In the summertime, here's a little picture, it goes up, right? I said basically fight between CP and MT. MT wins in the summertime, so it moves much more inward. And you can see here the rain chart, right? Because MT is going to bring rain. And so here we are, and we get 122 to 100 and, oh, these are centimeters, sorry, 48 to 64 centimeters in the summertime. Right? They're just total, but most of that is because, all of it is because of the MT. And you can see how far it moves in, and as it moves in, it starts to die out. Oh, this is something I didn't mention here. The CP and the MT, both of these together, have the greatest effect on our continent. Because what really stops them is the Rockies. So, and if you know, the Rockies are kind of on the west coast. So all of this, the rest of it, is basically dominated by the CP and the MT. Now, on the other side, the MT here, right, this is from the Pacific side. And here, it's the same thing. You have the hot, wet air moving inland. Now, it can cause something called the Pineapple Express. And this is basically, you see, here's Hawaii right here. So this is basically a stream of rain caused by the MT, but it brings it this way. And a lot of rain gets dumped onto California and other West Coast areas. Here's a nice satellite picture. You can see the Pineapple Express. It's coming from Hawaii off and dumping into us. And there's a nice video about it too.
Folks are keeping a close eye on the skies as we head into the weekend from coast to coast. In fact, torrential rain slamming several states in the west as this major system pushes ashore. And in the east, another big snowstorm coming together. NBC's Miguel Almaguer has our report.
The river of rain is now pouring into Northern California. The most powerful storm this year, set to dump sheets of water for 5 straight days. Outside Sacramento,
we heard some big booms, then all the power shut off.
Wind speeds top nearly 80 miles an hour. Up to 10 inches of rain could fall here.
If we can get through the ninth.
In the mountain town of Red Bluff, first responders are bracing for an emergency.
We have already done reverse 911s, advised over 1,000 people that this water is coming.
With trees toppled into cars and homes and power out for thousands near Medford, Oregon, the cleanup is underway. But outside Seattle, one community is still flooded in 4 feet of water. Now there is fear mudslides could be triggered next. The storm system that's walloping the west is being funneled by the Pineapple Express, an atmospheric river dumping a stream of tropical moisture across the region. The express can be hundreds of miles wide and 1,000 miles long.
It's like pointing a big hose right on California. You get a lot of rainfall in a short amount of time.
Still, all the rain won't end California's drought. The snowpack is just 25% of average. The state's largest reservoir more than half empty. The last 3 years, the driest in state recorded history. A historic drought and now a crippling storm. The Pineapple Express giving the West a wild ride.
While Northern California is getting rain, it is snow that this state desperately needs to help alleviate the storm, and that's simply not going to happen in this weather maker. While the rain here has temporarily stopped, it is the wind that is kicking up now. The river behind me, Brian, could see another 13 feet of water over the next 24 hours. This entire region under a flash flood warning. Brian.
Right, Miguel Almaguer in Northern California for us tonight. Hey, Miguel, thanks.
All right, so last but not least is the CT, or maybe it is least actually. The CT only develops in the summertime. It's continental tropic, which means it's going to be dry and hot. So this usually brings drought, which was mentioned in the last video there. Right, there's no water available in this desert region for it to pick up, so it's just dry and hot and drought conditions. Thankfully, it only happens in the summertime.